in the building.
Okay, and if again, let me reiterate what we appear to be watching. Top, but we can see that the building, the top, a plane of some
7, 8, 15 stories it had it banged into.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and it's halfway in the building.
Okay, and top, but we can reiterate what we're off of the building as we are looking at it.
It's got to hit at least 7, 8, 15 stories it had it banged into.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and it's halfway in the building.
Okay, and if again, let me reiterate what we appear to be.
I saw a plane sticking out of the building, and I could not believe my eyes. And I put over the radio that a plane had confirmed away from the World Trade Center and into the World Trade Center. And when we emerged from the Broadway Nassau station, people were running frantically in the street area, and there was debris of all sorts everywhere, and people were pointing, it's over there, it's over there. And as we ran up the road towards the World Trade Center, I saw a plane sticking out of the building, and I could not believe my eyes. And I put over the radio that a plane had confirmed hit the World Trade Center, and let them know that we were there, and just began an evacuation of the second building because there was so much debris falling from the first building. And
so that was without being told, you straight away your initial reaction?
Well, I did not know what the condition was.
Yeah.
And I work in the transit police department, of the NYPD. And as I said, 1 block away, and I saw this plane, and I basically just thought it was not real. Seeing a plane that's sticking out of the building on fire, and people frantically crying, running, etc., and so on. So, like I said, we started an immediate evacuation of the other building because people were running out of the doors. I was at the base of the second building, the second tower that was hit.
This was before it was hit.
This is before the tower was hit. This is right after the first plane hit. I was only 1 block away. So
did you hear it? Did you?
No, I was in the. I did not hear the first plane hit. I was in the subway system.
Right.
Of a block away.
Okay.
And the only way I knew was unknown condition at World Trade. Mm-hmm. We have different radios than the police department upstairs. Mm-hmm. Because of our antennas working different downstairs for communication purposes. City radios don't work in the subway, and subway radios do not hear what the city cops are responding to. Mm-hmm. So we're getting it secondhand information. Mm-hmm. So we started evacuation of the second building because people were coming out and stuff was flying down, and there was an overhang underneath the Borders bookstore. And we kept people underneath that overhang and told them just to get, go down the street, get out of the area, don't look up, continue to walk. Mm-hmm. And, excuse me. And, people running, people crying, and people were injured coming out of this building. And I went down to the lower level of the escalator because they were saying people needed help out. And I helped a woman that had MS. That's, I didn't get her name. I don't know who she was or where she was from or anything like that. But I carried her out of the building and brought her down to Broadway, away from, the front of the building. Because there was a possibility that there were other planes coming, and we needed to get people out of there. Even though triage was set up in different areas, I took her all the way down to Broadway. I got halfway down, almost to the end where the subway station comes up, and there was a big, tall gentleman there in camouflage fatigues, and I asked him to carry her the rest of the way around the corner, and I told all the people on that block to get out of here, but it's human nature that everybody stands and they want to see and they want to look. But we knew it wasn't safe, just because everything was flying and things were exploding. And what happened was the jet fuel from the first plane, later on we found out went through the elevator shaft of the first building that was hit. and that caused a massive explosion. And with
the
that,
lower level, right?
no, of that whole building, you know.
Oh, right through.
Right through, because supposedly the jet fuel went down, so that caused a bigger explosion, and that, you know, before the towers had fallen. And with that explosion, it was very chaotic there. You know, people were screaming, people were running, and, you know, myself and my partner and everybody included, because of the debris coming down and being hit, we didn't know what was happening at that time. We didn't know the plane was exploding because we're under the building, not seeing that at that time because my sight was obstructed from that other building. You know, later on we could see people jumping, you know, things falling, bodies, dead people. But when that happened, I ran under the overhang with the other people, and a big piece of metal the size of like the hood of a car, bigger than that, just missed me in the street area, and the air from that coming down and hitting was so forceful, and thank God it didn't bounce up and come my way, or I would be dead, but it was forceful enough with that air that it took me into the windows of the World Trade Center, and I was knocked to the ground.
Wow.
And there were cops yelling at me, get up and run, get up and run. And I just got up and I started running again to a little cubby hole where there were two other cops who you know, I stayed in a little cubby hole with, because there was a lot of debris falling.
Is this still outside of the...
This is still outside,
no?
yes. Cut.
All right.
So I was in the cubby hole, and you know, there was it looked trash, like everything was blown about, and people were screaming. And then there was a calm after that, and then we all ran back to the entranceway and continued our evacuation, because it seemed, you know, it seemed like it was okay. It was like safe enough to go back to that area. We had to continue to evacuate the people, you know, knowing that this was now a terrorism act, and you know, we're going to, you know, evacuate the building, get people out to safety. And
Did you ever feel at any time that the building might collapse? Is that something?
no, I never thought that the building would collapse. That was not in my mind.
Yeah.
Just the explosions and with the debris falling and the metal and the you know, the cement. There wasn't a lot of glass. There didn't seem to be. You know, I don't have a recollection of a lot of glass, you know. But I do have a recollection of the, you know, big hunks of metal. And, you know, and just, you know, people afterwards, you know. And so, I mean, this felt like I was there for hours and hours and hours. I, at one point, had a bullhorn, was evacuating the building with a bullhorn.
Were people responding?
People were like, thank you, officer, you know. And then we only had one gentleman that I encountered that was very upset, because we were trying to rush people through in a safe way, like stay under the overhang, go to the left, get out of here. And, you know, he was very upset. I just walked down 70 flights of stairs, give me a break. And you have to understand that people were bleeding. I saw people that, you know, a guy came out, his shoulder was totally backwards, popped out. A woman was burnt, like, you know, all over her body, her ears, her face, you know, things that people aren't supposed to see in a lifetime. And you just rush those people to EMS people that were there, that came and met us. And they would take them from you and go, you know. And that woman with MS, I was able to hold her and carry her enough to bring her further to safety, to get her out of the way, and let the people with, you know, more severe injuries, you know, to get to the closer, because they set up. But one thing that really bothered me was, besides a lot of things, a whole group of firemen came, and they went into the, you know, they went into that tower, you know, and now the aftermath, knowing that they all died and they never came out, because they were one of the last trucks to pull up, you know, before the second plane had hit, you know. So you know
this is all before the
This is all before the second plane had even hit, you know. And another, you know, that bothered me now, knowing that I held the door open, you know, for them to walk to their death, so to speak, because as everybody's coming out of the building, here are these, you know, firemen with all the equipment and everything they need to go up and save people's lives, but their own were taken. You know, and there was a lot of firemen. It was like 10, 15 firemen, you know, and there are 5 here, you know. That was an awful thing that sits in my mind.
What do you feel like in hindsight, what do you feel like would have done different?
No, I know there was nothing I could say to those
Yeah.
firefighters that was going to stop them, because that's their job, to go into that building. They were going to go into that building. I couldn't say, hey, there's more planes coming, or we don't know
building's
what's going to
unstable.
happen. That wasn't my call. That wasn't my place. They have a job like I had a job. And after that second explosion of the first plane, I said, okay, I'm going to die today, but I'm going to save as many people as I can. So I stayed, like everybody else stayed, and made that conscious decision to stay. And, that was an awful feeling, because people were coming out with cell phones, calling their loved ones. I'm out of the building, I'm coming down, I can't believe what's happening. And I wanted to take that cell phone away from them, and I wanted to call home, but I didn't have that opportunity. And we had to ask them to cut all cell phone services, because we were trying to, in an emergency situation, get lines going of talking. And it wasn't available to us because, the fire and this was the highest, level mobilization for the police department, the fire department, everybody came. Everybody was coming. And like I said, this 25-minute period to me felt like it was days. A man came running out of the building, and he had a whistle around his neck, and as a police officer, you're supposed to have a whistle. And I couldn't find my whistle, so I stopped this man. I said, excuse me, sir, may I have your whistle, please? He surely gave it to me, and I put it in my pocket, because I didn't know if I was going to need a whistle or not. And, later on the next day, when I went through my clothing, when I got home finally that night, I bagged my clothing, and the next day went through it, what's in it, because it was contaminated. And this whistle said WTC, fire safety, and it was an elevator key to the World Trade Center. I didn't know what was on it. I just knew it was. I only saw a key, and a whistle. And I didn't read the little nub on it, and the man handed it to me. So, that's crazy. Then we're under the building, continued evacuation, assisting people, and you heard the loudest plane, but you could not see anything from where we were.
That was the second one coming
The plane echoed, and I've never heard anything so loud in my life, and I'll never ever forget it. And I could hear the crash and the hit and the explosion. I was in the entranceway of the building, and I got blown out, because I had said to my partner, if anything happens, if at all possible, in this situation, I told my partner, if at all possible, stay together, try not to get separated. I'm going to dive for the corner of the building. It looked like a safe part of the structure of the building. If another plane were to happen to hit, and, so there was no time to think or act or anything like that. And the plane did hit, and it was very loud, and there was big, multiple explosions, and I had gotten blown out of the building, and I was able to catch the door well with my left hand, but know that I couldn't breathe, I couldn't see, and it was just very loud, and people were actually like blowing by, and there was parts of, it was parts of people, it was just, even though you couldn't see, it got to, an amazing point where I'm holding on for dear life, and I know if I let go, I'm going to get blown out to Church Street, and I'm going to die. But I can't see now, and and the noise was incredible. So I tried to pull myself up, and I hit a leg with my right hand, and I heard this man screaming to me to grab his hand, and with that I worked my way up this man's leg with my hand, and I finally reached his hand, and then I let go with my other hand, and I grabbed his body and pulled myself to him, which was the corner I was heading for originally. God forbid something had happened. And him and I just crouched in the corner and tried to cover our heads, from a falling building and a plane hitting and the debris, and dead bodies. And then there was silence, but this went, it felt like this was forever, and this was a death thing. We couldn't breathe, we really couldn't see. I didn't know who this man was. My partner, I had no idea where she was, and I all these things are going through your head, plus you're in shock. You're like, oh my God, am I alive? Am I dead? What happened? Did the rest of it explode? Did that plane come down? You heard the other plane come, so obviously it had hit the building. And with that, he says to me, "Do you have a flashlight?" And I said, "Yes." And I grabbed it out of my back, and I reached for my flashlight, and I said, "You have to hit it." So he hit it, and it went on, but we couldn't see, and we're choking. We couldn't breathe. I could not see you sitting across the table from me because the smoke was that dense. And I'm thinking in my mind, this is chemical, and we're going to die, because people were just laying there, and you tried to help them, but there was no response. And you heard beep, 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 all of these car alarms going off. And it's later on to find out that it was actually fireman packs going off, that they were down and they needed help. And I had never known that. I'm just thinking they were car alarms. And this man and I, we crawled, and he said, "We're going this way, I know where I am." And I'll tell you, for the life of me, I didn't know where I was, and I wasn't going anywhere without this guy, because to me, he was the only guy alive, and I was the only I hooked up with this guy, and I thought he was the only guy alive. And we were crawling for a while, but there was so much material and stuff on the ground. We crawled out of that area, and then we got up and we felt our way on the building that was still intact. We felt our way that way because we could not see. You could not see. You could not breathe. We would actually stop, and the both of us were throwing up, like chunks of black stuff that we had inhaled that we did not know. We were just throwing up because we couldn't breathe and we couldn't catch our breath. And as we walked and felt our way, around the building, we felt the planters out front. There used to be big planters in front of the World Trade Centers. And he said, "We're outside, we're out of the building," So he's like, "That's great." And we walked a little further, and we found a tree. And we're like, "We're definitely outside." So we continued to walk, and as we walked, there was a woman in the middle of the street with her arms open. And she was looking up at the sky, and she said, "I lost my pocketbook, I lost my pocketbook." And we're like, "Ma'am, you have to come with us." She was in shock, she wasn't injured, she was standing in the middle of the street, and as we stopped to throw up, we grabbed her, and we saw crushed cars, crushed people, later on it was described to us, as like all dead pigeons, but it was flesh, and cars and police cars and ambulances with lights on, but there was nobody. It was desolate. It was so desolate. And all in my mind, I kept saying, "I'm going to die, I'm going to die, we're still going to die," because there was nobody around, and the people that were around were dead or squished. And with everything being, and you couldn't really see, the further out you got, the more you could see, but there was still that cloud hanging. It wasn't like the big cloud of afterward, but it was a very heavy, thick, unknown burning sensation going in our lungs, even though we tried to cover up, and we helped the people that were, helpable, that we could help. We carried them with us, we brought them with us, and we said we didn't feel safe there because him and I agreed. I found out at this point that he was another police officer, and I didn't know him. He was from a different command, and found out at this point that he was a police officer, working for NYPD in a different command, and his name was Richie, and him and I were holding each other and carrying these people with us, and we both still felt like we were going to die. We felt it was a chemical warfare at this point because we couldn't breathe, we couldn't see, and we felt that we had to get out of the area, so we evacuated, anybody that we could. And as we walked down the street, there was a deli. Now, I don't know what street we were at. I was in shock. Him and I were both flipping out because he lost two partners. He couldn't find his two partners, and I couldn't find my partner. And we talked about it, and we're just like, we felt unsafe, and we felt that it was, at this point, we have to save who we can. And we were both very upset, so we continued. As we left that building area, we ran into a lieutenant of the guy Richie I was with, and I told the lieutenant who I was and that I was missing my partner, and please contact my district and let them know where I am. And he had a cell phone, and he called up the district, and he said, "I have Carol Pauker, Officer Pauker, I'm a lieutenant from where he was from," and He said, she's in my care, I'm going to be responsible for her, write it down on paper, she's missing her partner, she can't find her partner. You know, I lost my partner. You don't lose your partner, it's not something that happens, you know, I'm responsible for you, you know. And I stressed this to him, you know, I'm crying, I'm very upset and distraught and in shock and flipping out, not knowing, you know, what just happened until after, you know, I was there. And that's what happened. There's no real
explanation. You're just experiencing
I'm just experiencing it and not believing that this is real, feeling that this is a movie, I'm in a movie, and still not knowing if I'm going to die because I can't breathe, I can't see, I'm burning, I'm bleeding. You know, I had, you know, cuts on me and stuff. So, you know, superficial, but, you know, when you're bleeding like that, you know, and you're just walking and you're in shock, it's just an awful feeling. So anyway, this lieutenant took care of that and said, she's with me, she's missing her partner, please find her partner. And we continued. He says, walk. We have to continue to walk towards the West Side Highway. We helped people on the way. As we hit delis, we went into the delis, we got bags full of water and everything because there was emergency people. We were walking one way, they were walking another. And, you know, they weren't injured, they were fresh, they were coming on to help, you know.